So your book, Live Yes and one, I mean, I think you just touched on it quite a bit. If there's any more detail you wanted to go into, please do. But then another question around that is where can people get a hold of your book if they want to find out more about it and actually get their hands on it and read it? And then the third thing is just when it comes to the work that we're doing in the transition phase, a lot of the conversations that we're having are with athletes who are preparing for or undergoing career transition and retirement
Mhm.
or looking at dual careering. So some of that is by decision, but some of that is by circumstance. It's by, career ending injury or a contract
Yeah.
or finances getting cut. It's not necessarily something that they feel like was their choice. And so they're
Yeah.
having to undergo this. So how do you apply Live Yes and um, for an athlete who's going through something like that? How can they apply that?
Yeah, that's a great question. So the quick one is, if anyone's interested in my book, Three Words for Getting Unstuck, Live Yes And. It's on Amazon. You know, that little mom and pop shop online called Amazon. It is there. That's the easiest way to get it.
Yeah.
And to your point, so my book is basically laid out ten principles for getting unstuck. And most of those principles are improvisational principles that work on stage, but also work in your real life. And to your point about helping athletes who are in transition, either because they chose it or it was forced upon them. You know, when I was at IMG Academy, every week I met with players who were in the designated injured athlete program. And so whenever an athlete at IMG was injured to an extent where they couldn't train with their team, they were sort of pulled out of that day-to-day environment and put more into a rehab environment. And so I would work with those athletes. They would come in and I would have sessions either in a group or individual with those athletes each week about how are you doing and how are you dealing with this injury, and how are you embracing it? What new things are you finding out about yourself? You know, it's you take an athlete and give them an injury and the whole routine of their life has now been shaken, and it's been so that's scary. So what are you discovering with that new time? And so many times I would work with athletes, they'd be like, oh my gosh, I'm trying to learn the guitar, I'm trying to learn a new language, or I went back and I'm reading a book that I hadn't picked up in over a year. And again, from a yes and standpoint, being like, hey, I'm really sorry about this injury, but it's happened and we can't change that.
Mhm.
And what are we going to do about it? Right. Different athletes who, if a soccer player injured their left foot and they can't, and their left foot is their dominant foot and now they can't use it. Well, now they get to spend all this time doing things with their right foot. And now, so they make their right foot better while their left foot. And so it's this, it's embracing what is and making the most out of it. But even to the bigger question, I remember anytime I'd have a group of athletes that I was working with, say 12-year-old tennis players, and
Mhm.
I would ask them, hey, um, how many of you want to be professional? They'd all raise their hand, and and I would say, okay, let's pretend all of you become professional tennis players, and now you're 35 years old, and your tennis career is over. You made it. You were one of the ones that made it, and guess what? You're 35 years old, and now your professional tennis career is still over. Who are you now? They
Mhm.
look at me like, what do you mean? I'm like, who are you? Like, you've got all 50 years of life maybe left, but you're not a tennis player anymore. So who are you? And I'd be like, I don't know. Right. And I'd be like, that's fine. That's fine. Odds are most of you are not going to make it as professional tennis players. So this whole question of who am I if I'm not a tennis player? Who am I if I'm not a soccer player? Who am I if I'm not fill in the blank? And that applies to those of us in the non-sports world as well. Who am I if I'm not a performance coach? Who am I if I'm not a father? Who am I? And so even getting youth athletes to ask that question, so we can start to have this conversation of, you are not what you do. I am not what I do.
Mhm.
That's a part of who you are, but it's not who you are.
Mhm.
And if we can start to mentally be able to grasp this idea that whether it's an athlete or whatever role in your life, you are not the role that you play in life.
Yeah.
And so you might have a dozen different jobs or a dozen different careers throughout your life. That's not who you are. It's just what you did, or it's just what you do.
Mhm.
And so for me, the bigger question, Simon Sinek talks all about your why, understanding what your why is. I like to think of that as, I like to substitute why for purpose. You can substitute essence, whatever it is that works for someone. What is it inside of you that motivates you and inspires you to do the things that you do? I call that your why. I call that your purpose. So that is the thing that you want to have a firm grasp on, because that's the thing that's untouchable. So if I'm a soccer player, I bring that to soccer and it makes me a better soccer player. If I'm a parent, I bring that to my parenting and it makes me a better parent, but it's not who I am. So if you take away soccer, I'm still that person. If you take away parenting, I'm still that person. It's untouchable,
Mhm.
right? A title can be taken from me. A profession can be taken from me. A physical ability can be taken from me, but that why, that purpose, that essence inside of you is untouchable. It can never be taken from you. It's just the thing or the things that inspires you to be the best version of yourself.
Mhm.
And when you're really clear on what that is, that's actually going to help lead you into the things that you do that are more closely connected to why you do those things. And so, and then you can live the rest of your life just bringing that essence to everything that you do, and it's going to raise your performance, and it's going to ultimately give you a sense of motivation and peace with whatever you do.